Um, Welcome all. I want to call to order the meeting of the Board of Port Wardens on Tuesday, January 23rd, 2024. And we're going to call it at 7 p.m. Let's do a quick roll call. We can see Port Wardens, Mr. McCobb, Mr. Siegel, and Mr. Anderson, and myself included, of course, give us the quorum we need. We can go ahead and move to the agenda or approving of the last agenda. I entertain a motion to approve the agenda from the meeting, I believe it was November 28th, 2023 meeting.
I'll make the motion to approve the agenda.
Okay, I do apologize. I've got to interrupt myself for a second. I had skipped over the approving of our actual agenda for tonight's meeting, so we need to do that first. I do apologize. So, Harold, I'm gonna we'll pick you back up in a second, but I had skipped through that section. So we need to approve the agenda for this evening first. I'd like to entertain a motion for this meeting.
Okay, let's do that. I'll make a motion for tonight's meeting agenda.
Okay. Thank you. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you very much. Now let's move to the next one, which is approving the prior minutes meeting. So that was, of course, the November 28th, 2023 meeting. Can I get a motion to approve?
And I'll make that motion again.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
All right, any opposed? Scott, I'm sorry, I should have asked you last hour. Anyone opposed? Scott, you're muted. Well,
The yeas
Scott,
have it.
the yeas have it. All in favor.
All
At
in
least
favor.
let's do that while he's on mute. All right, so we have three that have it. So the meeting minutes have been approved. All right. Next on the agenda are the findings of fact. I'm going to read this through. We'll certainly allow discussion. So going one by one, the next item on the agenda is the findings of fact report 2023-00014, and that was the Wardor Improvement Association. It was installing that living shoreline. Any discussion? Okay, with no discussion, is there a motion
here?
Okay, fantastic. Is there a motion to approve the written findings of fact?
Make the motion
I'll
to
make a
approve.
motion to approve.
Okay, Scott, was that a second from you?
Sir.
All right, thank you. Okay, all those in favor of the motion of approving finding of fact for Port 2023-00014, the Wardor Improvement Association, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Scott, we can see your image, so your hands will work. Sometimes the volume, it lags, okay? All right, good. Smile. All right, let's move to the next item on the agenda, which is the findings of fact for Port 2023-0016, and it was Jack Biddle, 5 Southgate Avenue, install 37-foot timber bulkhead, 18 feet channel word of existing bulkhead, and dredge 15 by 25 foot area. Any discussion? All right.
No, it actually says 18 inches there, but I think that was just a mistake.
Okay. 18, did I say 18 feet? I'm sorry, 18 inches channel word. Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the written findings of fact? Or someone I need a motion for a written finding.
Motion.
Okay, Harold, thank you very much. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, thank you, Jonathan. We got a second. All right, all those in favor of the findings of fact, report 2023-00016, Jack Biddle, 5 Southgate Avenue. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. All right, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Next finding of fact is for, and again, as you recall, we all heard these at the same time, but I do need to read them separately. So That's just the way we have to do it. So the next agenda is findings of fact report 2023-00017 and Matthew McLaughlin on 9 Southgate Avenue, install 42-foot timber bulkhead, 18-inch channel ward of existing bulkhead and dredge 16 by 39-foot area. Any discussion? All right, I'd love a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Okay, Harold, thank you very much. You need a second? Okay, I guess we'll give that one to Scott. All right, thanks. All in favor of, I got to read it out. Sorry. All in favor of the findings of fact report 2023-00018, David, I'm sorry, 00017, Matthew McLaughlin of 9 Southgate. Aye. All in favor? Yay. Yay. Thank you very much. Okay, let's go to, we got two more of these that all had related. So findings of fact for report 2023-00018, and it's Mr. Lewis, David Lewis, 11 Southgate Avenue, and it was installed 22-foot timber bulkhead, 18-inch channel ward of existing bulkhead, and dredged 12 by 39-foot area. Any discussion? No, thank you very much. Is there, I need a motion to approve?
Motion.
All right, Harold, thank you very much. Can I get a second? I'll give that to Scott. Sorry. All right, thank you. All right. All those in favor of a motion to approve the written findings of fact report 2023-0018, David Lewis, 11 Southgate Avenue, please state aye or yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much. All right, and the last findings of fact from the last meeting is report 2023-00019, and it's Matthew McLaughlin and David Lewis combined, and it was 9 and 11 Southgate Avenue. Install shared pier between properties measuring 53 feet long and 6 feet wide, tapered with a 4-foot wide install 2 pylons. Is there any discussion?
Motion to approve.
All right.
Motion to
Can I get a
approve.
second? Okay, that was Scott. All right, so all those in favor of the motion to approve the written findings of fact report 2023-00019, Matthew McLaughlin and David Lewis, 9 and 11 Southgate Avenue, please state aye or yes.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, fantastic. Thank you very much. All right, we have no old business on the schedule for tonight, so we're going to go down to new business. Let me open up my assorted files that relate. Bear with me 1 second. This is going to be port 2023-00021, DD Binder, 107 Spa View Avenue. Let me pull my file up. Bear with me 1 second. Okay. Here we go, drawings. All right. So, so the next item on the agenda is port 2023-0003021. Dash DD Binder 107 Spa View Avenue, and it's to construct a 93-foot LF stone reinforcement against the existing stone bulkhead. Can I, if we can bring aboard any consultants or anyone who is here to testify, and so that we can get your hands raised and we'll swear you in. Is anyone speaking? Oh, great.
Yes, I am.
Mr. Snyder. All right, thank you very much. All right, please raise your hand. You do solemnly swear or affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give to the port wardens is the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Yes. I do.
All right, thank you very much. All right, as a preliminary matter, the board will accept into record the application packet and the staff report of planning and zoning and any public comments. Mr. Adams, are there any public comments or any notes about this particular case? Or
No, Chair, there's not. Not for this
Okay.
property, nope.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Mr. Schneider, we're going to start with just a simple, can you briefly describe your qualifications that are relevant to this application?
Yes, I work for a waterfront engineer, design and construction in Pasadena. We do these projects all the time, whether it be for City of Annapolis, Anne Arundel County, Calvert County. This is what we do rather regularly.
All right. Yes, I know. We see you often, so thank you very much. And let me go ahead and turn it over to you.
All right, I am first going to pull up an image of what the existing bulkhead is right now. So bear with me as I pull this up really quick. All right, just so you have reference. All right, let me know. Can you see that image right there?
Yes.
Okay, so that is the west side of the pier. The applicants are seeking approval for the construction of roughly 93 linear feet of stone revetment along the shoreline of 107 Spa View Avenue, Annapolis, Maryland. Currently, there is an existing stone bulkhead that is unstable and rapidly degrading, as you can see in this picture. If this shoreline is not stabilized, the bulkhead will inevitably fail, causing significant sediment to erode into Spa Creek. The contractor will remove a portion of the existing bulkhead and replace it with the stone revetment to ensure a seamless transition, as well as reduce any potential erosion issues along the property line. We would like to note that there are multiple stone revetments within this portion of Spa Creek, and the applicants have already received authorization from the Maryland Department of the Environment and the United States Army Corps of Engineers. That is it. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and ask questions. As far as I see, I mean, everything's sort of a standard equation here. I'm not seeing anything. There's no massive expansion. Nothing's going, into the harbor line. Let's go ahead and I guess, do any of the other port wardens have any particular questions?
Yeah, I just matter of curiosity. I'm not real familiar with how this is all constructed. So I have this technical data sheet, M100. What and monofilament propylene yarns. What is that? What is that used for? How is it constructed? What is it used for?
So I'm guessing you are referring to. I don't have that.
Geosynthetics.
Yeah. Okay. So that is
filter fabric for stonework.
Yeah, we refer to that as filter fabric. So essentially, when the existing materials pulled out the failing retaining wall and the stone that's underneath it, the contractor will lay in filter fabric and then put a layer of smaller stone and then your larger, we call it class 3 armor stone on top of that. What that does, that filter fabric allows for there to be basically penetration of water through that filter fabric without erosion occurring.
Is it like a netting material? It's like a netting to.
It's basically a really dense fabric. I'm trying to think of something that I could tell you to compare it to, but it's oh, you cut out there.
Yeah, you're cutting out a little there.
It's a geotextile that's used regularly within the environmental construction industry.
Is it like fiberglass, like a thin fiberglass type material equivalent or something like that?
No, it's more of a. It's really just a fabric.
It's like a silk
essentially,
right?
fabric. Yeah.
Okay. Huh. I'm just curious. I'm not familiar with it, so.
All right. Any other port wardens have any questions related to this? Okay. I'm gonna, with no more questions, I declare the public hearing on Port 2023-0021 address closed. To deliberations. I mean, the elements of this, since there's no doc part of it. I mean, I put the engineer presenting it, and then of course planning and zoning, and more importantly, the building. It's already sort of been approved by the city, so I'm trusting in that it fits perfectly within our responsibility, which is 15.16.020, and it's placed, in construction standard, others, various in the city orders, renders, navigation too close, combined. It doesn't interfere at all with anything being too close. The particular material used in it is substantial and lasting. So I think it fits, and that's again section 15.16.020. So I think we are all fine. There's another section, obviously, with wildlife conservation, and make sure it's not going to increase congestion, but it should. Obviously, you're handling the fact that it's going to address any erosion. That's what you're obviously fixing to a certain extent. So it's well within what we have to oversee. So I'll entertain a motion to approve or deny the application of Port 2023.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Okay. All right. I have to read the next part out loud. It's got to be on the record, so bear with me. So it's Port 2023-00021, DD Binder 107 Spa View Avenue. Motion to approve, I guess, was made by Scott. Can I get a second?
Yep.
Okay. That was Jonathan.
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay. And then we got that. All right. So all in favor of motion to approve the motion on application Port 2023-0021, DD Binder 107 Spa View Avenue, please state yes or aye.
Yes.
Okay. All right, that's unanimous. We don't have to get into the notes. Thank you very much. We can move to the next item, and let me open it up. This, by the way, is going to be 2023-00020, and it's on 697 Glendon Avenue. Let me open it up, Mr. Gage. Okay. So is can we get Madeline? Can we see who is speaking for this project? Do we have a person on the call?
I will.
Or Mr. Oh, good. All right. We don't need to discuss your qualifications. For the record, I need to state this, but this is to remove existing mooring pilings to truck a 6-foot by 75-foot pier and a 200 square foot floating platform, 2 boat lift pilings and 1 boat lift, and 4 mooring pilings, to construct a 38-foot FL stow. What's the FL stand for? I'm sorry, Chris.
LF is linear foot.
Okay, I don't know why it cut and pasted FL, but stone linear foot, stone revetment. Okay, so we don't need to swear you in again, I believe, Carrie, if he's sworn in already in a prior. Okay, fantastic. All right. As preliminary matter, board accept the packet. Okay, as preliminary matter, the board will accept into record the application packet and the staff report for the planning and zoning, and any public comments. Mr. Adams, do we have any public comments or any?
There's no public comments. There is some public testimony
Okay.
following their. Go ahead, Chris.
Mr. Gage may be speaking on part of this project, so he may need to be sworn in as well.
Okay. Mr. Gage, do you have your camera? Can you turn that on for?
And Robert, why don't you have Madeline
on video? I'm sorry.
bring forward the other 2 individuals that are listed for public testimony so you can swear everyone in at once?
I
Okay.
can see that.
All right. So, Mr. Gage, you don't have a camera?
I have a camera, but I'm getting a trouble message on it. I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Carrie, what's the protocol with? Just
Did he say he does not have a working camera?
he doesn't have a working camera.
Correct.
This is a new one. You could, I guess, theoretically have him repeat the oath so that he is verbally stating the oath as opposed to just saying "I do" at the end. I mean, you could also say "I do" or "I will" at the end, but it's this is a first. I don't know that it'd ever be contested, but
Okay.
it's really up to you as your comfort level as to how you want to proceed with that.
I'm comfortable if we get an "I do" on the record in his voice. I think that should suffice. Ideally, we would have everyone sort of on camera. So, Alicia, okay, and then there was one other person too. I don't see a image of them, who was the other person speaking?
So that was probably Todd, my fiance. He was not able to dial in time for Madeline to bring him in and test him. So if you want, I can pull him in and he can stand next to me.
I see his box. It looks like his video is turned on, but the screen is still black. So
Does he have a cover over the, like a lot of laptops have a cover plate?
Yeah, let me go check. Hold on.
Okay.
oh, now the video's gone. Todd, can you hear us?
If he's in the other room, let's just bring him into Alicia's.
I'm going to bring him in.
Come on,
Okay.
Todd.
All right.
A challenge.
No worries. No worries. All right. So everyone is going to testify. I know Mr. Snyder's already done this, but please raise your right hand or raise your hand. I just done this. All right. You do solemnly swear or affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you are about to give the Port Wardens is the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Yes.
I do.
Yes, I-
All right. Thank you very much. All right. Mr. Gage, I heard you as well. Thank you. All right. As a preliminary matter, the board will accept into record the application packet and staff report of planning and zoning. Brian, are there any, I guess we do have some people in attendance, but are there any written comments, anything in advance? You're muted.
Just the public testimony here tonight.
Okay. All right. So let me go ahead and turn this over to Mr. Snyder, if you can present what's being done.
Yes. The applicant, Mr. Gage, is seeking the approval to reconstruct and modify the existing pier within Bat Creek located at 697 Glendon Avenue. The existing pier is in need of replacement with damage to the pilings and main structure. In addition, the current pier remains at an insufficient height and is often underwater during higher than normal tidal events, thus leaving the pier susceptible to further damage. I am going to pull up an image so you can see from January 9th that this pier was very much underwater. Is not a great picture, but I think it is important to show. It is blurred out, obviously, but there is no pier that is present above water. It is important to note that most of the piers were not underwater at this time. This picture was taken that was within the vicinity. Furthermore, the proposed pier, boat lift, and floating platform will all lie within the boundaries of the harbor line and lateral line setbacks and pose no navigational impedance on the adjacent neighbors and or other boat traffic within Bat Creek. Also, the applicants are seeking the approval for the construction of roughly 38 feet of stone revetment on the west side of the pier. Currently, there is an existing stone revetment located on the adjacent neighbor's property, located at 699 Glendon Avenue. I am going to share that as well. Let me stop sharing this one. Can you see that all right?
Yes.
Okay. The applicants are simply seeking to extend the existing stone revetment to stabilize their section of shoreline. The existing shoreline is currently eroding due to the wave action generated within this portion of Bat Creek. The recommended contractor will tie the stone revetment directly into the existing stone to ensure a seamless transition, as well as reduce any potential erosion issues along the property line. We would like to note that this is a rather common practice within high density waterfront properties. Please note that we have already received authorization from the Maryland Department of the Environment, as well as the Army Corps of Engineers, for the proposed pier and shoreline modifications. Thank you.
Okay. Carrie, I'm going to need a little guidance with this is actually one of the first where we've had additional people commenting at the thing that I can recall. When do we bring Alicia in and Mr. Gage?
You can sort of do it one of two ways. You can take their testimony now. You can see if the port wardens have any questions for Chris. My recommendation would be to just take all of the testimony and then have the port wardens ask whatever questions of whichever witness they want once everyone has testified.
Okay. All right. And that's what we'll do. So let's go ahead and I guess we can bring Mr. Gage in first, since this is your property. Do you have anything you want to add to what Chris presented?
Well, Mr. Chairman, no, I think that Chris summarized it. We've probably lost close to 2 feet of just in the 2 years that we've lived here due to erosion. The wave action is undercutting the embankment, and as you saw in the photo, in high water events, our dock is completely immersed, and so we just like to bring it up to standard and stabilize that shoreline.
All right. Alicia, I'm sorry I'm calling you by your first name. I don't have your last name on the screen, so but please.
No, that's okay. It's fine. It's what my iPhone name is coming up as. So it's okay. Alicia's fine. Actually, so we are at 699 Glendon Avenue, and we're actually excited that there's going to be some revetment put in. In fact, we did ours 2 years ago, and so that you can see in the picture where the erosion is, and that other side of the bulkhead is ours. Our biggest concern really is, like I said, we're very excited about this because there has been significant erosion even when that picture was last taken. We're just asking that the revetment that's been put in is tied directly with our revetment, because we don't want any gaps in there. Like I said, because then that would obviously, create some more erosion. So again, we're excited that they're doing this on the west side. To the east side of their shed is also there's nothing there, and then there's a living shoreline. So at some point we would love to see them do that part too, because that one is actually the closest to the house. But like I said, this is a start. We're excited about this, but our biggest concern is we definitely do not want any gap in that revetment. Is that something that we can ask and have added to the permit so that there's no land gap in there? And I'm going to pause. Am I making sense?
Yes, you are. And I believe Mr. Snyder might be able to speak to it, and probably Mr. Gage can reaffirm. And again, you guys are sworn in, on the record. I mean, it's not, what is the intent?
Yes, so absolutely. We're not trying to cause another issue, right? It only makes sense to tie in the existing stone revetment that is located at 699 Glendon Avenue. Our contractors that are all marine licensed contractors, we deal with this fairly regularly in terms of tying two properties together. They actually will take it one step further and try to match the stone color so that you don't see the difference in stone color between the two property lines.
That's outstanding. Thank you. And so we have that for record. There will be no gap, and they'll be tied in.
Absolutely.
That's great, Chris. Yeah. Thank you. That was our big concern. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Thank you. And before I pass this off to the other port wardens, my only thing I wanted to sort of just get clear and on the record is it looks like we're really going all the way to the harbor line, which is permitted as long as you don't touch the harbor line, right? And as long as you never have a vessel moored or tied to that outside. We're having so much congestion issues, as everyone knows. Enforcement is really the harbor master. In the past, it's always been either neighbors and or other people transiting in the harbor, in the in the navigable waterway or with, the usable part of the harbor line. But whenever I see something actually just touching it, I just want to verify and hear you say on record that you will not be mooring a boat, tying a boat up or whatever on the outside of that particular, it looks like I don't know how I would describe the floating dock. It's basically, I don't see what the wedge is. Is it a floating dock that a boat goes up on top of?
That's for either a jet ski or a kayak.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. But Mr. Gage, you have no intention of tying up a vessel on the harbor line side, correct?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. We have no intention to have any dockage on the outside of that dock.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. And again, it's not up to us. We assume that will always happen, or not happen actually. But it is the harbor master that, wants us to make sure we're discussing some of that. Yes.
Yeah, great.
right.
I'm glad you brought that up. That was a concern because we come around that. And so obviously hitting that navigable waterway would be a concern. So thank you to Mr. Gage for clarifying that. And thank you for bringing that up. Thank you.
Sure. Okay. All right. Port Wardens, anyone have any particular questions related to this?
You stole my question, Robert.
I don't.
I'm sorry. Harold, anything? Scott,
No, we're
you
good.
Okay. All right. Got the questions. What? Sorry. Was that Scott? I missed that. I'm sorry. Never mind. Let's keep moving forward. All right. I'm going to keep pushing forward. All right, all questions have been asked. I declare the public hearing on port 2023-00022 address closed. So this is, again, you've got your setbacks are really easy on this one. Your consultant, we know that this sort of bulkhead riprap is being built. Again, it's to the satisfaction of the neighbors as well. With tying it in. So we're set with section 151620, or not 1516-020. Right. It's that congestion of water area. You are right to the harbor line, but you have the riparian rights to be all the way up to there, and you're not going to use it on the outside. So I think you're perfectly fine with section 1516.030. So I as far as I'm concerned, you're well within Title 15, which is a majority of what we're responsible for. So let's go ahead and I'll entertain a motion to approve or deny the application in port 2023-00022, DM Investment LLC, Spa Cove. Oh, sorry, reading the is it? I moved ahead of this. I do apologize. Sorry. This is entertain a motion to approve or deny the application for port 2023-00020. David Gage, 697 Glendon Avenue. Can I get a motion for that, please?
A motion to approve.
Second.
All right. Harold got that. Thank you. Jonathan was the second on that. All right. So all in favor of the motion to approve port 2023-00020, David Gage, 697 Glendon Avenue. Please say aye or yay.
All right.
Yay.
Aye. All right. That's unanimous. Thank you guys very much. Let's move on to the third new or new application. So the next application, I need to open this, so bear with me a second. I live in the world of Google Earth and the application open at the same time. So let me get to that. So this is the Spa Cove. This is going to be, by the way, port 2023-00022. All right. So the next item on the agenda is port 2023-00022, DM Investment LLC, Spa Cove Apartments, and it's 1012 Primrose Road. It's to construct 2 stone groins living shoreline, install a 6-foot by 26-foot floating pier, which includes a 6-foot by 154-foot T-head, number of different finger piers, and it's in the description. We have a whole bunch of elements. I believe it's all in the port number that matters. All right. So can we have Madeline bring in anyone who's going to speak to this? I guess Mr. Snyder, are you the only one?
I
believe.
Steven was
Or-
in here for a little and then he is
Right here
not.
now.
Oh,
He's here.
never
Oh,
mind.
he's
Just
back.
kidding.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
All right. So Chris, you're not on this one. Is it just Steven or are you
No,
both on?
I am.
Okay. All right.
There
I
are
have to.
also, Robert, sorry, 2 people in the
Sure.
attention list who are raising their hands. I don't have them on my list, so I'm assuming they're here for public testimony.
I didn't receive any other requests.
And I can't see any hands raised. Carrie, what is the protocol for?
Madeline, did you say their names?
Eric Groft and Patrick Denker.
I mean, I don't think that there's a pre-meeting requirement if someone wants to speak publicly, if they're providing like oral testimony. So it's really chair discretion if you want to include them to provide their testimony. At least I'm not aware of anything in the rules and regs or on the website or anything like that that limits someone signing up for the public testimony aspect of it live on camera as opposed to the written testimony.
Okay. If this were a live meeting and they showed up, would they be allowed?
Yes, they would be. If this was like a city council meeting, yes, they would be allowed to
Right.
testify.
Okay.
I consider
Then
the virtual
let's-
meeting a one.
Okay, then let's bring them in if you can, Madeline, and that way I can swear in Stephen and the other 2 at the same time.
All right, now I have 3 hands raised, so I'm just gonna promote all 3 of them.
Okay.
They'll be in a second.
Okay. And I would like to make sure they all have cameras, and we probably need to make this clear in sort of future meetings that if you're going to speak at these, we got to be able to see your hand raised. Okay. All right. Welcome everyone. Christopher, do you have a camera?
That's the planning and zoning director, so he
Oh,
will not be
okay.
providing public testimony.
Okay, I'm sorry. I saw it pop up. I didn't realize I lost count. Okay, so if you would please, everyone raise their hand who will be speaking. All right, as you do solemnly swear or affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give to Port Wardens is the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Did I get all right, thank you very much. Okay, as a preliminary matter, the board will accept into record the application packet and the staff report from planning and zoning and any public comments. Mr. Adams, any additional public comments? Or I know we had the 3 additional people come in, but any written?
No written comments provided.
All right, thank you very much. All right, who is the applicant and or consultant who is going to be speaking to this? All right, Mr. Snyder. All right, thank you. I guess let me, if you would, give me 1 second to just open up my file on this, and we will get rolling on this. All right, 107. Spot you. Okay. All right. If you would, Mr. Snyder.
All right. I'll start by sharing my screen, kind of what the shoreline's doing right now, so you have a general understanding of why we're doing this project and what the issue is. You see that all right?
Yeah.
Okay. The applicant, DM Investments, is seeking the approval to remove the existing pier and install a 6-foot by 26-foot floating pier with a 6-foot by 154-foot floating T-head pier with 5 3-foot by 15-foot floating finger piers, a 3-foot by 35-foot finger pier, a 3-foot by 30-foot finger pier, a 10-foot by 20-foot floating platform, 9 mooring piles, and to dredge approximately 1,325 square feet. The existing pier located at 1012 Spa Cove Apartments is in need of replacement with the damage to the existing pilings and main structure. In addition, the current pier remains an insufficient height and becomes susceptible at higher than normal tides. Currently, the pier extends 75 feet into the channel over the harbor line and is oriented in such a manner that makes it difficult for vessels to safely navigate close to the bulkhead due to the water depths at low tide. During the right tidal condition, the pier can accommodate up to 14 boats. However, many of the slips are rendered useless during low tidal events. The proposed pier has been designed to extend only 60 feet into the channel in a manner to accommodate 10 vessels while reducing any impact to shallow water habitat along the bulkhead. By pushing the pier out into Spot Creek, the necessary water depths can be obtained by dredging the immediate vicinity to a depth of -5 below mean low water. This greatly improves navigability and safety for boaters entering and exiting the pier. Lastly, the proposed floating pier and platforms produce far less environmental impact than that of a traditional fixed pier, i.e. pilings. Floating piers require far less pilings than traditional piers. I have included a diagram depicting the approximate locations of the required pilings. I have that somewhere. I can pull that up if necessary. Let it be noted that by using a floating pier, there is over a 60% reduction in the required pilings in comparison to a traditional pier. The applicants are also seeking approval for the installation of 2 stone groins and 3,000 square feet of marsh. The purpose and need of the stone groins is to reduce the sediment drift within Spot Cove and increase the natural marsh habitat along the shoreline. Not only does the proposed solution provide environmental benefits, but it also captures much of the sediment that otherwise will fill in the proposed dredging area. Again, this serves as an environmental benefit by reducing the frequency of required dredging required of the navigational conditions to and from the pier. Furthermore, both the proposed floating pier, finger piers, floating platform, and living shoreline all lie well within the boundaries of the harbor line and lateral line setbacks and pose no navigational impedance on adjacent neighbors and or other boat traffic within Spot Creek. Although the proposed dredging extends beyond the harbor line into the center of the channel, it is necessary in ensuring boater safety during low tide events. Also, as previously stated, the proposed pier reduces channelward encroachment to within the harbor line, thus requiring necessary dredging to acquire minimum water depths for this water-dependent structure. Please note that we have already received authorization from the Maryland Department of the Environment and the United States Army Corps of Engineers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to, like we did on the last one, I'm going to hear the testimony and or the public comment. And before we get to the Port Warden's questions, can we get, who is the property representative and or I believe it's the apartment complex, but who would be speaking from there? Or will
Steve Marjoram.
Okay. Any particular comments, anything you want to do before we turn it over to the public?
I think Chris did a great job summing up the proposed reconstruction of the current pier. The current pier is in a condition that is unsatisfactory and needs capital improvement dollars. It's at the end of its useful life, and this is our attempt to rebuild in the most conscientious way.
All right. And then I guess, can we hear the other people, the 3 who were joining in? I'm sorry, I don't see the names. Let me scroll down. I guess we'll start with Patrick, Mr. Denker.
I think Eric's going to speak for us. We're all neighbors across the cove from the property that you're talking about.
Hey, Chris, can you stop sharing your screen, Chris?
Oh, sorry.
My name's Eric Croft. I am a resident at 1229 Boucher Avenue. I'm president of the Hawkins Cove Homeowners Association. I'm also a CEO of Umavant Sweden Landscape Architects, and I've worked on waterfront revetment in and around the Eastern Shore and Annapolis for my whole 40-year career. So I guess we're very concerned about the vessel navigation on Spa Creek. I want to point out that I don't think I have to make anyone aware of the extreme severe sedimentation that filling in Hawkins Cove over the last 30 years. That's been very demonstrated by Spa Creek Conservancy, and I think the city's very aware of that. So this is a very important environmentally sensitive area that has gone through severe degradation. So we want to make sure the right thing is done. We're concerned about, certainly crafts coming in and out of the cove. We're very pleased to see that there is some environmental revetment with those groins. I guess I have a question as to why just 130 feet wide, and why is it 30 feet, 35 feet deep? And I also have a concern that I just know from my experiences over 40 years, whenever you have a hard structure such as a stone groin, particularly a lateral stone groin, next to a soft situation, there's going to be more erosion on that soft side. So I'd like the engineer to explain. I also want to say that I'm sorry we did not pre-register or provide written commentary, but I did not get a letter of the 10 residences directly across from this property. Only 2 of us received the letter. So I don't know what the method was that was used to send out the notifications that the 2 that did get it only got it last Friday. So I just wanted to state that as well.
Okay, and Mr. Groff, just so you know, even if it gets approved this evening, there's a period of time before the findings of fact are final, and there is an opportunity for anyone from the community to come out and state their concerns, and then so it is just letting you know that it's not like you would have missed the deadline. Although I'm glad you're here now. So I guess, Mr. Snyder, can you address their?
Yeah, absolutely, Mr. Groff. I completely understand your concerns. I do want to bring up, we understand that you guys are relatively close to, that shoreline. You're directly across the creek from such. But I'm gonna bring up an image showing the current conditions in relation to what we're proposing, which might clear up some of your questions. Okay. So right now, as it stands, there's currently, I believe there's concern because there's a fallen tree right now that is directly across from the pier. Correct?
Correct.
Right. And it's relatively shallow water right underneath that tree, right?
Very.
Yeah. And it's not navigable as it stands,
in
right?
fact, there's 50% of the time there is no water there.
Yeah. Yeah. So what we're doing, and again, we are limited on our end by what the Maryland Department of Environment will allow for us to do here. Okay. They won't allow us to just put a typical stone revetment along the shoreline, primarily because of that reason, because of the water depths. All right. Now, we obviously, and I showed the picture previously in my presentation, we have a lot of erosion issues going on along the shore bank. Okay. So really our only options are to basically utilize the living shoreline. Now, we do this for nearly all our projects. We design stone groins to 35 feet. What that allows us to do is to capture as much sand within that retained area as possible. So given that we're proposing this 35-foot stone groin, keep in mind, we're also going to be removing the fallen trees and debris that are in that immediate area, right? We're actually increasing the distance for navigation from 54 feet to 72 feet. Okay. And now keep in mind, that's at the lowest point of the stone structure, meaning below the water, right? You won't, if you were to say, put a rangefinder or measure from the top of the stone, you add another 5-6 feet onto it before what would essentially be exposed. Okay. I can assure you in the last 15 to 20 years of designing these living shorelines as part of waterfront engineering design, we haven't had any accumulation of material on the front end of the groin. Okay, the goal is to get material to closer towards essentially the edge of the shoreline rather than protruding into the channel. Right, we have to deal with this concept of literal drift, meaning sediment moving in and out of that particular channel. Okay, in relation, I understand again the concern for the water depths. But right now, it already is extremely shallow and is not navigable as it is, and our current design does not impose any navigational hazard.
And I totally appreciate that, and that's been, for the most part, my experience as well. What is the frontage of this property along the cove?
Ooh, off the top of my head, I do not know. I can find out for you.
We, Chris, without looking at a survey, but we basically wrap from the beginning of Hawkins all the way to the boat ramp. So we have significant frontage. This is addressing the marina, bulkhead marina, and that one groin or two groin area that we're talking about.
I guess my question is, why just 130 feet?
Money.
The reason being in that particular sense is, one, it gets narrower going into the cove, right? So we want to make sure that, as it gets narrower there, and we need essentially a structure to retain any sand or whatever we plan on doing there. We don't want to create that navigational impedance. That's why we don't need to go all the way down there.
It's in my professional opinion, the uphill groin will cause increased sediment upstream from that. That's clear. That will definitely happen. And how much that will happen, unfortunately, we'll be living there and finding out. So, I guess obviously these homeowners are benefiting from better boat dockage and water access. But this shoreline has been neglected for decades and decades, since starting with the inception of these units and this development. So it seems an appropriate time for the city, state, and concerns to evaluate the entire shoreline there and make a decision on what the right thing is to do. Considering the increase in property values that this will eventually cause.
Completely
I'm
understand.
confused about from what direction are you guys envisioning the sedimentation coming? Do you think the sedimentation is coming in from Spa Creek or out from Hawkins Creek?
It actually happens in both directions, depending on ebb and flow. You typically have sediment coming in during your flow events, and then you have material pulling out of the channel during your ebb events. Now, typically, whether I can tell you if it's a 50-50 ratio, what's coming in, what's coming not, I don't know. I haven't done a sediment report for this area. There's no way of finding that out.
Well, and I will say that, the images you were showing in the beginning show how there is a lot of sediment coming into the cove off of your property, and this living shoreline will mitigate that, and that's all a good thing. I'm just questioning why just 130 feet.
So I would say, and I can't speak on behalf of the funding for DM Investments, but again, this is going to be a rather expensive project, right? So
Mr. Groff, so your HOA is the neighborhood across the creek from them, correct?
We are 5 units. Yes, across the.
Okay. Have you done riprap or any living shoreline or anything on your side? I'm just out of curiosity.
We have a natural living shoreline.
Okay.
that is stable. I mean, we know
it's hard to see on Google Earth. I'm just curious. Yeah,
I'm at 1229 Boucher Avenue, and our units are 1227 through 1235.
Okay.
The rest of Robert, the entire cove is natural, stable, living shoreline. There's no bulkhead or riprap except out at the mouth of the cove at the Shearwater property has riprap. The rest of the cove is natural.
Okay, yeah, I'm looking at a Google Earth. It's just a little hard to zoom down to that level. All right. So this would be the beginning, at Mr. Snyder, of at least bringing something to that side of the shore to help that shore side, correct?
I would say, yeah, it's the start of a project now. Whether DM Investments decide to invest in continuing their project along that shoreline, I can't speak on behalf of that, but we need to at least do something for the immediate issues happening. As I showed you in those pictures previously, we have basically what we call shear walls right there, where it's a vertical slope. What's happening is it's not stable and sediments falling into Spot Creek. So we need to start somewhere.
And we applaud that effort, but that entire shoreline is, this is the worst piece, but it's not much better upstream from here on that property side. It's the worst frontage on Spa Cove. I guess I have a question for the city as well. How does this fit into the city's plan for a full, the holistic approach to Hawkins Cove, considering the amount of degradation that really started by poor engineering from all of these developments on that side of Spa Cove going back 30 and 40 years that the city allowed?
Unfortunately, I can't speak to 30 to 40 years of what the city has planned, and I'm not sure. I know we have to deal with Title 15, which of course does have some erosion elements within it, but I would probably, and we'll try to find you an answer to that, but this is generally outside the purview, the global sort of game plan for addressing this is a little outside of our responsibility. But Mr. I guess, Brian, do you have any, have you heard of any chatter, or Carrie? Has there been discussions of this?
Yeah, that's not something that I can answer at this time. I don't have enough history with this project, but it's certainly something I'm willing to look at offline.
Okay.
I'd say that our plans, speaking for DM Investments, addresses approximately 50% of the shoreline that is surrounding the apartment community. And not to say that we are not gonna in the future look at the complete shoreline that we own, but as Chris said, we need to start somewhere. This is not a 10%.
I'm just afraid that once you do this,
it's not 15%. This is almost 50%. And it's addressing a marina and a pier that is becoming unsafe and needing to be replaced. So that's where we're, as owners, starting.
All right, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and let the Port Wardens start asking questions. I have just one sort of, not so much question. I can easily see how, and I applaud you for bringing in the vessels to within the harbor line. That's something that anytime we see projects, for decades, people have snuck and stretched out, and potentially might have been grandfathered in. It might not have been stretched out. It could have been that way before 1980 when we said, this is the defined harbor line, please don't cross it. So I'm glad that this current project is doing that. I do want to make sure that you're aware, by putting the mooring, putting the pilings sort of just inside the mooring line, you really do have to make sure you have the right length boat in that slip. We're really, again, the harbor master and everybody, our wooders are congested. We got paddle boarders, we got everyone out there, and everyone has been for years not counting the length of their engine. If it's an outboard, not counting their bowsprit, not counting their swim platform, and putting a 35-footer in a 35 slip, but really that boat's 42 feet sticking out. We do expect those vessels, or the harbor master expects those vessels to be within those pilings. Okay. But let me turn it over to the other Port Wardens. Let's start. Any Port Wardens? If you can unshare this, Chris. go ahead. Who's
Yeah.
got a comment?
Yeah, hi, this is, it's Dr. Siegel. You are right next to the Truxton Park and their boat ramp, correct?
Correct.
Yep. When you come down to the road, we're on the right.
Correct. So when you actually have doing all this dredging, you have a big barge there and et cetera, are you going to at any time impede the launch ramp of boats coming in and out? Will that barge be anywhere to block the waterway?
I'll let maybe Chris chime in a little bit on that, but we're working with local professionals that that we've worked with for years that will do it the right way. And Chris, maybe you could kind of talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely not. In terms of when it comes to the actual construction, and really, again, this is a floating platform, so the biggest essentially time spent with a barge is going to be driving piles, and again, it's rather minimal on that end. And again, a lot of these, I don't anticipate them bringing in a massive barge, more so a small to medium sized barge, given that it's primarily floating platform and floating pier. But no, those barges are rather mobile. And if, one, there's no need for them to be impeding on the Truxton boat ramp. But if for any reason they impede it, they can pull their spuds up rather quickly and move. But that's never been an issue for any project we've ever worked on.
Because the boat ramp is used a lot, and it has the two slips there, and boats coming in and out. I don't want to have the situation where you have a barge that's dredging, impeding the navigation of boats coming in and out of that of those ramps.
Yeah, understood.
All right, Mr. Anderson or Mr. McCott, Port Warden, you guys?
Yeah, a question on the living waterfront. I noticed you have you put down sand fill with rocks, and then you put the filter geotextile on top of it, and then you pile more sand and rocks. And it looks like there's larger rocks put at the toe of this living shoreline. Is there anything to prevent the sand and fill from going in between the seams of those larger rocks at the toe of the living shoreline, or is that not a concern?
So typically at the toe, we will use a larger stone. That again, our contractors put these together like puzzles, okay, so that there's not gaps within the rock. But between using the right stone and the filter fabric, what it does is it prevents sediment from moving laterally through the structure, so everything is fairly retained.
Okay, thank you. And another question on the groins. If in the event that more work is done on this shoreline to extend it, is there any problem with having a groin in the middle of two living shorelines? Is that advantageous?
In this particular, so it's all dependent on what we look at is essentially the distance between the groins over where the extent of the essentially the living shoreline is going to go out to, and that is a calculation that we do internally. But no, it's more so one, we try to reduce the amount of impact to shallow water habitat. So we space out our stone groins proportionally so that less stone, one, is less expensive, but two, it's also less impact to any of that habitat or submerged aquatic vegetation.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, let's move to, I'm going to go ahead and declare the public hearing for Port 2023-00022 closed. Let me just tell you, as far as what we're responsible for in Title 15, it's an improvement. We're getting rid of areas that have long been there that exceed the harbor line by what looks like a good 3 slips. So that's definitely an improvement for navigation. You're working on the erosion. Ideally, again, it would be more of the cove, and it would be nice if we had a global plan for the city. But at least we're starting somewhere. So that is helpful with Title well, the navigation is 1516.020. There's also that's portion of the construction. So again, there's no setback issues with this element. You know, as far as I'm concerned, it sort of fits within what we're trying to achieve within Title 15. Go ahead and love to entertain a motion to approve or deny the application Port 2023-00022 DM Investments LLC, Spa Cove Apartments, 112 Primrose Road. Can I get a motion for that, please, from one of the polls?
Make a motion to approve.
Okay, Harold got it in. Mr. McCobb got the second on that. Okay, we got a second. All in favor of the motion to approve the application for Port 2023-00022 DM Investments LLC, Spot Cove Apartments, 1012 Primrose Road. State aye or yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye. Aye. Okay, that was unanimous with the
Aye.
court. Thank you very much. Thank you all for joining us as well. Thank you. All right, so let's go ahead and we'll move forward to the final new application, but you know, we've looked at this prior. So the next on the agenda will be Port 2023-00025. Peter, sorry. 7046 Bemby Beach Road, and it's to install a 6 by 133 foot floating pier, which includes a 6 by 29.5 floating platform. Install 4 boat lift piles for 1 boat lift and 2 mooring piles for 1 PWC, as well as a gangway. Let me, if we can have Madeline bring in all the parties involved with that matter, we can swear them in.
All right. Peter joined Chris, and then for public testimony, you have Paul Bollinger and Jake Iverson.
Okay, and if you can, everyone, if you can have your cameras on right now, so we can do the swearing in. Okay. Mr. Bollinger, if we can get, again, if everyone is going to swear in or speak to this, we can get you one. Okay. All right. I assume that is everybody. Thank you. All right. So please hold your hand up. We're going to go ahead and swear you in. You do solemnly swear or affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give to the Port Wardens is the whole truth and nothing but the truth. Can I get an I do? Thank you. Thank you. All right. So let's go ahead. Let me confirm with Mr. Adams there, you know, that as a preliminary matter, the board will accept into record the application packet, staff report, planning and zoning, and any public comments. Let me confirm with Mr. Adams. Is there any additional existence or public comment at this point?
So we received, there's an email dated January 22nd from Mr. Bollinger, along with 6 photos that he submitted for the board.
Okay.
And we did receive some additional written testimony that came in after the deadline, which is, you know, whether or not that's admitted will be your decision.
Yeah, no, it's supposed to be, you know, noon the day prior. It's written on the person and the person should, you know, it should have come in on time. It came in today. So roughly 27 hours after the deadline. Let's go ahead and I guess who is the consultant or is Mr. Sari going to be doing? Okay, Mr. Schneider, thank you. If you could give us the rundown.
The applicants are seeking approval for the construction of 131 foot floating pier with a 6 foot by 29.5 foot floating platform, 4 boat lift piles, 1 boat lift, and 1 PWC lift within Back Creek. Currently, there is a T-head pier that is in need of replacement as well as encroaches on the lateral line setbacks. The applicants have presented to Port Wardens on 2 separate occasions with 2 separate designs pertaining to the pier and have been denied approval for the reasons pertaining to the encroachment on Crab Marina. On November 21st, 2023, the applicants and myself met with the city of Annapolis to discuss a solution that would maintain the nature of the cove and accessibility from all adjacent neighbors. This discussion included reducing the main stem of the pier from the previously proposed 138 feet down to 131 feet, and reducing the floating platform from 31 feet in length to 29.5 feet in length. These revisions have been proposed to the proposed pier to allow for 40 feet between the end of the Crab Marina Pier, which is plenty sufficient to allow for safe navigation. I do want to note that we have included the approximate locations of the piles to be installed to support the floating pier. Please know that the proposed pilings are scaled up to 18 inches in diameter for the purposes of identification. Now, I know in this particular instance, and I'm going to pull this up if you wouldn't mind, I'll share my screen here in a second. I just want to clear this up before we get into it. The reason that we scale these up for the purpose of the drawings is because the state has requested us to do so, given that if we essentially, if we show the pilings on the drawings as being 8 to 10 inches, which is what the industry standard is, it looks like a dot on a speck of paper and you can't read it. So I just want to be clear when I pull this up. This is, I understand it's rather, might be rather fuzzy, but again, this is the estimated location of where the piling is going to be. It's within the lateral line setback with the dimension of 10 inches. Again, and within the 5-foot lateral line setback. Furthermore, the proposed pier meets the needs for the applicant while ensuring no navigational impacts to the adjacent property owners. Thank you.
Okay. All right. I guess, Mr. Seri, do you have any comments at this point, or Chris did the?
No, I think Chris covered it. You've seen it before, and we're, hopefully working with the city and all parties to, accommodate everyone's needs. So,
okay.
Hopefully we're good at this point.
All right, Mr. Bollinger, you're muted. You're muted.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the difficulties we had with this permit application that it was drawn at a 40-to-1 scale, which is not standard for the city. We've spoken with the city zoning and permitting person, and they said normally they're getting 30-to-1. I can show you this right here. When Crab was providing information for its dock, it was 20-to-1. So you could get the detail you needed. The detail provided in this letterhead type drawing is very insufficient. The concept that the engineer has to explain that a piling is 8 to 10 inches is standard is not accurate at all. I've got a picture.
I want to let you know that 40-to-1 is in our code is the requirement. It is
right, and it is normal to have slightly escalated because it is very difficult to see.
On letterhead, it's not. If you were dealing with sheets, yes, I could understand it possible, but not on letterhead, sir. That's why you're having the engineer explain where a pinhead is on that piece of paper, which is hardly what we want to use when we're having that as an issue from previous permit applications. And to say that the piling is 8 to 10 inches, that's not going to be accurate. I can provide a picture showing you what an actual piling size is with the D-ring that will go around the piling. And it all comes out to 20 inches. So that's 20 inches that's protruding from the dock that's not incorporated into this drawing. And again, that was one of the issues that was addressed at a previous Port Wardens meeting. So we're not in the interest or business of trying to prevent our neighbor from building a dock that accommodates 3 slips, which is all he is allowed to do. if he wanted to replace his current slips in kind, even though they encroach in our property, that would be within his rights. However, when he comes up with a plan that has a floating dock, and it's not 131 feet, it extends out 150 feet from shore. And when we had Brian Adams on our property on the T head looking back at the Sorry Properties docks, he said that maybe 10 feet farther out from those pilings would be viable for access to our marina and for him. And you come in with something that's 30 feet beyond those pilings. So that's an issue for us because it's unnecessary. He has allowed 3 slips. If you take his boat, which is shown in this drawing as 43 feet, and according to the specifications for the boat, it's actually 40 feet 6 inches. So it's larger than it's shown there. And it's 20 feet of space behind the boat to the finger pier with a 30-foot finger pier. That's another slip. I don't care what you want to say or how you want to call it. That's another slip. He could move his boat back 20 feet and take that off the front of the pier and still have a floating dock with sufficient depth for his boat in that location. So the idea that he needs to have that floating dock immediately adjacent to the right-of-way, which you'll note in the drawings, the crab docks are 25 feet away. We did that on purpose to guarantee ourselves the ability to have access to areas of our marina. Now we have a neighbor that's building a floating dock that cannot be used at all on our side of the property, but immediately on it. I mean, you have to ask yourself, why would you do that when it could be put on the west side of the property where you can't access the west side of the dock at all right now and have more open water out to the harbor line? So we have an issue with overbuilding a neighbor's dock that accommodates far larger of a boat than he owns, which is more standard to the boats on the bay being 40 foot. And the slips there are limited to 3. So I think anybody looking at this would say it's way overbuilt. There's more space for more boats on it than a pier this size would normally accommodate. And it's immediately adjacent to the right-of-way without showing a very good or accurate piling system with the D-ring around it, which is going to add 20 inches to the outboard side. And so we're expecting that if anything is ever built on that side, that we will have drawings that show the pilings, because if you look at the back of the permit shows the schematics of what the docks look like. It shows the schematics of what the boat lift will look like, but it doesn't show a schematic of the pilings or the D-rings. And that's a very critical issue when you're abutting a neighbor's property right on the property line. And I don't know if the Board of Port Wardens has the authority to say someone's allowed to build a dock that they're not allowed to dock on the other side of it, because the Sorries are not going to be on this property forever. Crab has a 40-year lease with the city. So when someone comes and looks at his property and sees this dock out there, are they going to think they can dock on the other side of it as well? I mean,
well, that would be up to the port wardens. You can't assume, and we can't make decisions based on a neighbor's assumption of what might happen in the future with another owner. It would be the harbor master that would enforce that. Just like someone who puts their boat on a T-head that protrudes into the harbor line, it's their responsibility for the city of Annapolis to actually enforce that. But the port wardens can't make a decision based on what another might assume that they're building their dock for, as long as it's within the code that we're responsible for enforcing. So let's keep pushing.
Let me get to the point then, Mr. Chairman. The length of the pier is too long, and it creates an impediment for boats coming in and out of Crabs Marina. If you're saying no one can assume anything, he's assuming that the boats we currently use are the same boats that we'll be using in 30 years. And that's not fair or accurate. So
right, and that's what I'm saying. Again, we take into consideration what the people are presenting that they have and are using. We can't take into consideration what they might buy in 10 years or 20 years, as long as they don't violate the lateral setbacks and of course the harbor line setbacks. I mean, there's based on what the applicant is presenting is what we have to make our decision based on. Mr. Iverson.
Hey, good evening. Thank you very much. I appreciate being here. Really, I'm here to, sorry, I'm Jake Iverson, president of Watermark. We are on the adjacent property within the Annapolis Landing Marina. We typically during the winter and sometimes during the summer, we do dock boats on the, I guess that's the east side of our existing pier of the Annapolis Landing Marina. And I've just expressed a little bit of concern as there seems that there will be a lot of vessel traffic there, and I want to make sure that there's enough room for everyone. I don't know that I have well, I guess that's about it. I just expressed concern on the potential of the new dock and the usability of some of the slips that are proposed here, specifically the boat lift slip. If it's it can be built, but is it going to be usable? That's all I have.
Mr. Chair, if you'd like to speak.
Go ahead, Mr. Chair.
Okay, just to respond, I'll respond to Annapolis Landing. First of all, is that we've got a 6.5 foot wide boat that we're going to put in the boat lift right now. So we're not going to build a dock that we're going to have to change at some point in the future to be able to get a boat in there. So that's our decision. We want easy access to boat lift. So we do have the right to put 3 boats in there if we change it. Right now, our permit actually is for 4 boats. So we're actually reducing it by 1 boat by bringing it into the current code. The permit was issued to the previous owners several decades ago. So I understand on the Annapolis Landing side, we're taking pilings away from that side that are going to give you more room. We're fine with the amount of room. We've designed a dock that we can get a boat in and out of. Speaking to Mr. Bollinger's concerns, first of all, I mean the boat that we're in the process of buying is 43 feet long. I don't know where he got his information from, but he can look it up. It's publicly available information. So our goal is to get out to deeper water. The boat draws 6.5 feet. And with the low tides and the bottom filling in that area in particular, we don't feel like being just a little bit out from where the boat is docked now. Our current boat, which draws less water and is frequently aground, we don't feel like that's a really good situation for us. We don't want to dredge. We prefer just to build a dock that's out in deeper water. The reason that the dock is proposed, as we discussed last time, on the east side of our riparian right space is that the strongest winds of a northeaster are going to be blowing the boat off the dock instead of onto the dock. So that's the only reason we have it on that side. We have no intention to dock any boats. We couldn't legally dock any boats over on the east side of our pier. So, you know, if Crab still can't get a boat in through a 40-foot wide gap, I mean, they've got a 14-foot wide catamaran that they get in on the other side. It's 32 feet. They have no problem with that. You know, their current boats are 8 feet wide, so they take them out one at a time. A 40-foot wide boat is it really doesn't exist that would fit in there. So,
Mr. Sarah, let me not to cut you off. Let me add. When we go through the process of getting the permit through the Army Corps of Engineers and the Maryland Department of the Environment, part of that review process is justifying the water depths required for the vessel by the property owner. Okay, the boat that will be docked here and going to be docked here is essentially 6 feet, 6 to 6.5 feet with draft. That is why we need that minimal requirement to get out to that water depths. That is per the Maryland Department of the Environment. We have to justify that. That is rather standard. Now, to elaborate on the pilings, whether or not you use an 8-inch piling or an 18-inch piling, that's depending on your use. Whether you want to use an 18-inch piling for the massive T-head floating pier that's out there now, more power to you, but you don't need to for a straight pier and one that is of this magnitude. Even more so, I'd like to ask Mr. Bollinger here, are all the operators of your vessels captains?
Captains as in what?
Are they certified captains?
No.
Okay. There's still every vessel that's been documented there. The biggest one is the 14 by 41 foot catamaran. And there's over 40 feet between the end of the pier and your floating pier. If you cannot get a 14 or 15 foot boat in between that space, I don't think you should be driving a boat.
Well, I don't know if that's your right to say that, but you're forcing us, if you'll notice this, the 40-foot ingress and egress is at an angle, which takes us in front of the watermark boats to come into our marina. I don't know if that's standard protocol for permitting, that you have to come in across other people's bows to come into your own property versus entering directly in from the harbor line.
To be clear,
Chris, Jay, if I could just add something, I have a question. Chris, are you a captain yourself?
I'm not.
Okay, so, okay, understood.
And if I may share, if you guys have Google Earth and you actually look at the watermark boat is there during the large vessel all the way on the end, that angle it's such a great distance. Let me share it with you guys. Hold on. I was looking at it closely today because I just sort of, this has been interesting of all the applications we've gotten. Let me show you guys. Bear with me 1 second.
By the way, we've provided DNR's sonar mapping of the water in this area, and there's plenty of depth if that boat's moved back 20 feet. And that was done in the past year. And it only draws 6 inches more than his current boat. So we're really muddying the water.
Well, but here's one of the challenges. I just want to throw this out there. It's our job is to make sure, obviously, things are done safely and things are done to environmental, where it should be, that things work with neighbors. It's not our job to tell someone how to use their riparian rights. It's our job to make sure that how they do use it is actually within our code under Title 15. So I don't, it's not necessarily, I don't know if it's the right of a neighbor to tell someone exactly how they should use their riparian rights. And again, we don't have say in that.
Well, I mean, Mr. Chairman, I'm not telling them how to use it. He's using it as an example of why the dock needs to be as long as it is, and it's not valid. So please take that as I mean it. These are DNR mapping of the bottom there, and the bottom is sufficient depth. Now, the owner has said he doesn't want to dredge, and yet he bought a boat that draws more than potentially what his property allows. Now, does that mean you can just stick your pier as far out as you want? No. And this is a unique property in that it is on a cove and it does come to a point in a pie. So they need to take that into consideration with the location of the floating pier. That's what we're saying. The whole conversation of all the previous permit hearings has been that we're talking about how they impact their other neighbors. Well, we're letting you know that. And the boats that we have now in the fleet may not be the boats in 20 or 30 years. We don't know that.
Could I jump in here just briefly? Because there are a couple of things that I think are just incorrect. First of all, I don't know what the DNR mapping is, but when our boat is sitting on the bottom, I can feel it. So that tells me that either the DNR mapping is wrong or there's been additional infill since that time. But let me say one thing. So if the Crab built this dock, the city of Annapolis, owns the dock and owns the land, and they're happy. From what I understand, the staff is recommending acceptance of our plan. But so when Crab proposed their dock, they said it would not interfere with anyone's riparian rights. Ours are on the other side. Well, now they're saying, oh, you have riparian rights, but you can't use them because you'll be blocking us. And I would say to that, well, if you can't get out of a 40-foot gap, then the solution might be for you to shorten your dock, because you've built an 80-foot wide T-head. You have 150 feet.
Again, we're now getting into Kelly.
The 150 feet of harbor line, you've got an 80-foot T-head. So, you built a dock in a way that basically blocks yourself in, or you're using our riparian water rights.
Mr. Sari, he has been approved for his particular thing many years ago, and it was well within our confines, Port 2020 -033. So it's not, we can't ask him, the same way he can't really be telling you how to use his riparian rights, as long as you both are doing it within the confines. So let me move on. Let me move on to Port Wardens asking questions, if I may. Any Port Wardens with a question?
Yeah, I have I'm looking here at the, am I on?
Yeah, you're breaking up a little though. Keep going.
I'm on. You have that sort of little finger pier sitting off about halfway up the main dock, and you're going to be putting it looks like a lift there for a dinghy or something. Is that correct?
Well, there's a PWC lift, which doesn't.
Yeah, PWC. How, if to take that PWC out of that slip, it looks like the only way to take it out is to actually encroach on the neighbor to your left's water. Is that correct?
No, there's 10 feet. There's 5-foot setback on either side of the lateral line, and the boat's 6.5 feet wide. So we've got 10 feet to get it through there. It's a Harrishoff 12.5. It's a tiny little.
Is it okay? Because on the diagram here, it looks like that finger pier, that's what I'm going to call it, where the PWC goes right up to the 5-foot distance away from the lateral line.
But he's allowed to traverse, Harold. We had discussed this in the last meeting.
Right.
Owners are allowed to traverse. That's one of the purposes for having the dual 5-foot setbacks on each side of the lateral line, is such that people can navigate to their respective slips.
Okay.
We had visited this in the last meeting.
Okay. So. Well, if that's okay. That's about all. As I said, I see no. I see people trying to fight over this little bit of area, and I think he's entitled to what he's entitled to, and that's how I see it. He's entitled by our code to what he is entitled to, and everything else is irrelevant.
I just have a quick question, which may be irrelevant to all of this. I'm just curious, what size boat lift will be installed?
That's a 15 by 15 foot boat lift, I believe.
Is there any weight limit to it?
Typically, those lifts are between
70 pounds.
10 and 12,000 pounds, but that's on the upper end. It all
And this
depends on
one
the
will
motors
be-
that are used for the lift.
And this one will be 10,000 or 12.5 or 15 or something like that.
Yeah, the 12 and a half is 15 feet long. I had one, that's why I know.
Yeah.
Got it. Thank
We
you.
end the
Mr.
screen
Shapiro.
sharing.
Yeah, Mr.
Yes.
Shapiro, would you mind turning
Yeah, no
off your
problem. I'm
screen
sorry.
share, Chairman?
All right. Let's please, any other port wardens? Jonathan, I know you're
So for the Annapolis Landing Marina, there exists, it looks like on this picture, there exists mooring pilings along the lateral line. And you're saying that there was an issue with parking your boat there. It seems there are existing pilings on that lateral line, and those are going to be removed. What other navigation issues, would this proposal have on your vessels?
This is a question for me.
Jake Iverson. Yeah, Jake Iverson. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. No, I where that boat lift is and you're able to transverse, back out and go forward. We have, during the winter, we have Annapolitan 2 right at the end where it is today. I was just looking for clarification. I was concerned that it could impede some of the navigation, but it seems like it's within, the lines where it needs to be, at least for our concern. I represent Watermark. I don't represent the marina. The marina is owned by someone else. So
Okay.
I'm not. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thanks for clarifying.
You're welcome.
Mhm.
anything more, John?
And a question for Paul. In the day-to-day operations of your facility, is there a situation where 40 feet is not enough? And if so, what would be an appropriate amount of space that you would estimate you would need from the top of that floating pier to the proposed end of the dock?
Well, that's what we were stating, that the sailboat could be moved back. There's 20 feet of space before its stern and finger pier. That's just wasted space. And the pier could be cut back, and there's no reason it's not. It's just extended out that far, and it pinches off our waterway there, which is shown in the previous map. That we have to enter into the marina at an angle across the bows of the Watermark boats, which are there in the summer. They are all sticking way out there. And there's also a very large 46-foot sailing catamaran on the end of that pier that is coming out 25 feet off of there. So when you were having two boats go in and out of the harbor at the same time, then you're wanting to give adequate space for these boats to come in and out. And we have 6 boats in the fleet. They're coming in and out. Mm-hmm. So, to answer the question, I mean, if the pier was cut back 20 feet, where it was 10 feet farther out than the current pilings, then we would have adequate space. And that's what Brian Adams said when he saw the pier and the dock with his own observation. I mean, I just wish we could have the port wardens there to take a look at it with an eyeball on it, because there's a bit of a discrepancy here about what can and can't be done there.
Excuse me. Whoa. You use Brian Adams as as representing. I haven't heard Brian Adams say that in any way, shape, or form. You just said Brian Adams says it's not enough. I don't believe he said that.
I'd also
He's
like
not a
to ask,
witness.
in this version, Mr. Snyder, you shortened the pier, right? By, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 feet. Is that
Correct.
accurate or inaccurate?
Correct. We've reduced the main stem of the pier by 7 feet.
Okay.
Never have worked. Never.
Okay. And Mr. Bollinger, do you use Annapolis Yacht Club for regattas, right? But you've been doing it for a couple decades, correct?
For one, yes.
Okay. And so the width of the opening to the activity center at its widest point is 40 feet. It reduces down to around 36 is if you go on each side of the pier, and you have regular regattas where boats come in successfully with coach boats and escort boats and race committee. When I saw it grow from 35 to 40 feet, which is what it looks like on paper, I thought that was certainly an improvement. Is there any way, have you guys gotten together as neighbors to discuss? I mean, ideally, again, we're trying to make sure all parties have their ability to use what they have in the best way possible. But we've got to have there's sometimes a little give and take, and it looks like there was some give by pulling back the dock. And is that accurate, Mr. Schneider? Okay.
Well, the original dock with Kevin Scott reviewing it went all the way to the harbor line. And that was 100 feet sticking out there. And then he cut it back to 80, and Kevin said no. And so Kevin was on the city staff.
In front of us now.
That's false.
Mr. Sari?
That's false, Mr. Bollinger. Anyway, look, I mean, right now, it is. You can look it up. Okay, right now, we never went out to the harbor line. Right now, the Crab, the way they operate their boats is they have 6 small boats, 22-foot boats, and they all go out one at a time, a couple of minutes spaced apart. They all come back in one at a time, spaced a couple of minutes apart. That's part of their standard operating procedure. We saw them do this all summer. There was never, I mean, I went out there one day, I put a little buoy out at 35, which is where we were before, get off the dock, and it was never close. I mean, so much room. Now with 40, it's like, how much do you need?
Well, that 35, Peter, was perpendicular, and it wasn't at an angle.
But we're not, that's not in front of us now. The opening has opened. That is in front of us now. Let's keep moving this forward. As Scott, I haven't heard from you. I'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions, that's what I should.
It's going to be gone.
Scott, I'm sorry, you're breaking up miserably. Is there any?
We can't hear Scott.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Scott. Next time you should come into my office. We'll get you good bandwidth. Give it one more try, and if we can't hear you, we're going to move forward.
No.
Sorry. Scott, I'm sorry. We don't even hear a half of it.
Mr. Chairman, I just have one more question.
Sure.
Just for the record, either Chris Schneider or Mr. Sari, can you just restate that that you're not going to have either the pilings or any D-rings from the floating dock extend past the setback?
I can state that we will not encroach on the 5-foot setback we have on our side. We will absolutely not do that. We'll never dock a boat on that side. There's really no concern at all.
Thank you.
Right, and just so to give Mr. Bollinger a little bit of understanding, the city is serious about the construction. If any violation, it's a pretty hefty daily fine. And so I'm sure that the construction team will keep that in mind, because I'm sure the harbor master will be looking closely. So I'm glad you stated that. And I assume also you won't be docking any boats on the crab side of that.
Correct.
Okay.
Can I clarify what Harold said? Because I didn't say what you said, Harold. What I had said was, Brian had said if the piling or the floating dock was extended 10 feet from the current pilings, that would be about as far as he could see it working.
Okay.
He didn't say anything else. That's what he said.
Okay. It appeared that you were using him as a witness.
Well,
Yeah,
Let
me just
he's
clarify.
here.
So I'll just clarify. So yeah, I met with Mr. Bollinger and we walked out on the Crab Marina or the Crab Pier, and it was just an observation looking back from that pier, looking at the water. I wasn't taking measurements or anything. I said, yeah, that looks like you could extend his current pier by 10 or so feet, and that seems like it would be sufficient. But what I'm reviewing now is what's on the plans. Again, this was just a field observation.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
Nobody took an oath. We're just saying from seeing it, and that's why I said it would have been great if the Board of Port Wardens could see it, but we still think the dock is too long for what needs to be there for a boat for 3 slips. And I don't know how you say you need a 65-foot finger floating pier for a 43-foot boat.
Again, Mr. Bollinger, it's not someone else's right to tell what the riparian owner, the owner of those riparian rights, can do with it. As long as they're within code, that's all we can do. I know it's an opinion. I understand your opinion. And trust me, I've dealt with junior sailors and massive fleets of boats, hundreds of opties, all flooding in at the same time. I know what it's like. I know what it's like when a squall hits. That was one of my big concerns when this first came. And I understand the size vessels you're using and that you have escorts with these people. I have a lot of concern for the individuals who are using the facilities that you have. But again, our job is to make sure we allow the property owners, be it public, be it the city of Annapolis, whoever owns that, their riparian rights within their respective lateral lines with the setbacks and the harbor line in consideration, that we make sure they're within code. Okay.
Yeah. Well, my reference to the length, sir, is as it relates then to the distance between our dock and his. If the length was shorter, the distance and the spacing would be greater.
I agree. That's math, but that's not our right. Mr. Seri has a right to use the certain amount of space within there, within the again, all the different title concerns that we have to deal with as port wardens. I mean, that's what our obligation is to make sure, certainly all parties, we don't want anything dangerous out there. We don't want anything, that could cause environmental damage, anything like that. We want to make sure the construction is accurate, but how he does it, as long as he's within code, and the city signs off on all the other elements related to it, that's what we're tasked with. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and I believe we've we've discussed this well. I'm going to declare the public hearing on Port 2023-00025 address closed. As far as I'm concerned, this meets all the given title elements that relate to certainly setback. It meets title concerns for the harbor line by a bit. The building, the city has already sort of given us their staff approval for this particular project. It's constructed in the way we need. That's Title 15, 16, 20. There's no effect to wildlife or erosion, 15, 16, 030. Again, we're everything is sort of as it should be, 15, 18, 080 with the harbor line and 15, 18, 100 with the lateral line. I'll entertain a motion to approve or deny the application for 2023-00025. Mr. Peter Seri, 7046 Bemby Beach Road. Can I get a motion?
Motion to approve.
Okay, Jonathan McCobb, thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay. Scott, we do see you, so I can get a hand up if we do a vote, okay? Either way, obviously. So, all right. All in favor of the motion to approve the application port 2023-00025, Sherry, 7046 Beach Road. State aye or yes if you approve.
Aye.
Aye. Scott, hand up. Hand up or don't put a hand up. Okay. All right. I'm assuming. Okay. So that's an aye. So at this point, it's unanimous. Do you have okay. Thank you. At this point, it's unanimous. And all four. So I don't believe I'd state who if all four do it. So thank you very much, everyone. And let's move to the next topic. If we can, I guess we can get anyone who was part of that particular port number off. But people who are here, I usually thank in the beginning. I want to thank Madeline a ton and Mr. Adams and of course Carrie, our attorney, the city attorney. Thank you guys very much for being present with this. I've got to move to the next topic, which is miscellanea. And for once, we actually have one. Port wardens. We have to nominate and vote in our next meeting. We can't do it in this meeting because it has to be on the agenda prior to the meeting, but we have to vote on the chairman for 2024. Because we didn't have the December meeting, I wasn't made aware of it until December, and I didn't get it to Brian in time to put on the thing, so I apologize. So we can certainly discuss it. We can discuss it then, and I don't think we can discuss it actually until it's on the agenda. So I just want to let you know that's coming in the next agenda. Okay. So there being no other items on the agenda, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
A point of privilege. May I have a moment to introduce myself as planning director before you adjourn the meeting?
Yeah. Thanks. Good to meet you.
Yeah, thank you. Nice to meet you, Robert, and members of the Port Wardens. My name is Chris Jakubiak, and I've been recently installed as the planning director for the city of Annapolis. And I'm making a point to get out to all the various boards and commissions that our office administers and staffs. And I'm delighted to be here and to see how you go through your work, which is very deliberate and efficient. And so I really appreciate that. And I've enjoyed working with Brian as well on preparing for these cases tonight and seeing how things go. But if you ever need anything, please don't hesitate, Mr. Chairman, to contact me or individual members. I'm happy to assist, and we look forward to continue to work with Carrie in the law office to be of assistance to you.
Well,
okay,
welcome.
Great, thanks.
Thank
Welcome
you.
aboard. That's good. I forgot to thank Kimberly as well.
Welcome
Thank
to
you. She always
Annapolis.
does all the paperwork for us.
Thank you.
All right. Let's if we can, I guess, move with the adjournment. If I can get a motion. Or does anyone else have any comments before we adjourn? Just
You
check.
better show up at the next meeting, Robert.
Why?
Because if we have to vote,
Well,
if we have to vote,
No.
if we have to vote for a new
right.
president.
All right, so can we get a motion to adjourn? Thank you guys very much. I thought this was a very good meeting, by the way. Scott, I'm not kidding about the invite to come over here. What?
What's that?
I'm not kidding about the invite.